latest Forza Italian Football Podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Conor Clancy, and joining me from behind his blue and white striped mug is Nicholas Carroll. Nick, welcome along.
Hello, everyone. It's been another big week of Serie A, some upsets, some thrashings, and it wouldn't be Italian league without some controversy around the referees. So a lot to get into it, and hopefully we can get through one podcast without mentioning one Papa Gomez without that mention just then.
Right, you've seen the running order. You know that's not going to happen. And I know you're pretty keen to talk about him, so don't try and put this all on me. I'm in particularly good form today because after a long time, we are welcoming back Luca Bloody Gunby. Luca, welcome along.
Oh yeah. I don't think it was that long a time, maybe just a couple of weeks, but yeah, excited to discuss more Serie A, where you have all these mid-table teams on the beach battling out for not very much at all. But you had the derby, you had some interesting stuff, a few big games. So let's crack on.
Yeah, well, 2 weeks without speaking to you is far too long for my liking, Luca. So just remember that if you do like what we do here on Forza Italian Football, you like the podcast, the YouTube channel, that you can help us out a little bit by pledging $1 or $2 a month to our Patreon account. Anything you can give is extremely helpful to us. And to do that, just go to patreon.com/Forza Italian Football. Right, guys, we're going to start things off on a disappointing note, really, this week. And I'm sure most of our listeners and viewers will be aware that Sully Montari was the victim of some racist abuse this weekend against Cagliari for Pescara. Basically, a couple of fans were abusing him throughout the game. He noticed that one of these was a little kid. He went over to the kid who was sitting with his parents, gave the kid his shirt, he said, to act as an example for the kid because his parents weren't doing it. And then went back to the referee, reported the issue. The referee didn't stop the game, didn't do anything about it. The referee, in fact, gave out to Montari for approaching the stand, and then yellow carded him for dissent, which led Montari to walk off the pitch, and Pescara finished the game with 10 men. Luca, I'll come to you first. This is obviously something we see in Italian football far too often. What do you think needs to be done to actually put an end to it?
Yeah, obviously it is something that you do see coming up quite regularly with Spanish or Italian football as well, like quite regularly, and is obviously unpleasant, especially when it's getting to the stage where like these players who are professionals can no longer ignore and they're reacting. It's just very hard because like obviously football isn't something that just kind of exists in its own vacuum. It's not something that's just linked to football. Obviously it comes from somewhere else. Like if it's a kid with his parents, like obviously that's just terrible, like parenting, poor manners, like without even like going into a kind of political like tangent. It's just obviously unacceptable, but at the same time I don't really see what you can do about it. Like the football authorities will obviously like be investigating, fining, and probably, I don't know, stadium closures, you have that kind of thing. But I don't know, it seems like kind of in a way it's a battle that you can't really win. Like it just depends on society on the wider kind of basis. It's not just limited to football. Obviously football people behave differently. They'll be more kind of abusive, rude than they would in their day-to-day life. I suppose like you get people being racist at football matches who aren't necessarily racist, but it's just I don't know. It's like obviously you have to punish it whenever it occurs, but I don't think there's any kind of golden solution. Obviously FIFA got rid of its anti-racism task force, was probably a mistake, saying that their mission had been won, but obviously you kind of need these bodies, but no matter what they do, there's no obvious solution. It's kind of always going to unfortunately happen, and there's always going to be these kind of incidents. You can just sort of punish them and try and get rid of people who are found guilty of them, but other than that I don't really see a way to stop it permanently.
Yeah, Nick, Luca's probably right that it is a more societal issue, but in terms of football, do the FIGC just need to start handing out stadium bans? I know for repeated offences, even because Cagliari, it's a few years ago now, but their supporters have previous for abusing, I think it was Samuel Eto'o against Inter. You might be more familiar with that, but like in football terms, what do you think people need to do to try and eliminate this if possible?
Yeah, there's no doubting it's a very difficult issue to take on, and it is very much a greater societal issue. You might argue, particularly in countries like Italy, but I know this kind of thing just seems to keep cropping up every season, and Serie A makes the news for all the wrong reasons once again. And yes, it is difficult, but I mean, you can't just keep going on like this. Like this, it's not acceptable in football, let alone in any kind of life. I don't understand how every level of management just continues to go through this charade without really trying to deal with it. I understand it's very difficult, and as Luca said, there is no golden solution, but something needs to be done to at least try and quell it, to put some kind of strategy in place, to put some policies, some regulations, some real punishments, because this is absolutely ridiculous. What Salim Montari had to go through is beyond a joke, and for him to actually get a yellow card when he is going to the referee, for one, actually is a regulation that is in place in Serie A, I believe, where the referee, when he does hear of any racist chants or anything, is supposed to spot the official, and then they are supposed to make a call as to whether the game goes ahead. And it seemed like there was no kind of consultation like that in that game. So for one, the referee was completely out of line in that match. I think Salim Montari was completely in his rights to walk off the pitch. And unfortunately, football is in a place where these players need to take that kind of action actually be done, because it needs to start at that level for any kind of flow-on effect to take place. I mean, after the match, Pescara's coach, Zeman, actually said, while he sympathised, his exact quote is, "Montari has abandoned the pitch because of racist chants, but we should not take justice into our own hands." If Salim Montari doesn't take it into his own hands, no one else is doing it for him. And that's the biggest shame of this for football, because the clubs aren't doing anything. The Lega Serie A, or the Italian Federation, isn't doing anything, and FIFA certainly isn't doing anything. So why shouldn't Montari take that into his own hands? If actually, and this is a football thing, because FIFA can talk about that racism doesn't exist in football, but everyone knows that's a complete joke. If this is actually going to be taken seriously, it needs to happen at every level in football, starting from the players not accepting it, to the crowds, the ultras that a lot of this is taking place in. They need to take responsibility. It's bullshit for them to turn around and say, well, it's just a minority that's doing it. That's crap. How many people in that group know exactly who is doing this? Of course they know. They need to hold their own groups responsible. The club needs to hold those groups responsible. Ban them. Ban where the ultras sit. Yes, it would take so much away from the atmosphere, but a hardline approach. And then from there, it goes to the Italian Federation. They need to be imposing some kind of bans or fines do nothing. That bans or even point deductions down the line on clubs. And then it goes down to FIFA, where FIFA should be putting some kind of regulations on each of the federations for them to show that they actually got a plan in place to tackle this issue. Every step, there should be a plan, and there should be someone accountable. And at this moment, that doesn't exist at all in football, and it's going to change in football until that happens. So yes, it's an incredibly difficult issue to tackle, but it's enough of just standing aside and just hoping that society will eventually change. Something needs to actually be done.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but it does seem unlikely that those in a position of authority will actually do anything about it, because was it last year or the year before, when Carlo Tavecchio, just before he was going for re-election as president, he described, I think it was black players, as monkey or banana eaters, wasn't it? Something along those lines.
It was a fictional Lazio player called Opti Popa, who was eating bananas one day in Africa and then signed up by Lazio in Serie A. That was the thing, and then he had a FIFA ban as a result of that. Yeah.
Right. Well, when you've got people like that in charge of the association, supposed to be responsible for dishing out these bans, it's a horrible situation to be in because it's unlikely that anything is going to really happen of note. It's a shame to kick the podcast off on a note like that again, as we seem to have to do regularly enough. But it's one of those things about Italian football that desperately needs fixing. We'll move on to the football now. We'll kick things off with the Derby della Capitale. Roma once again lost to Lazio. It had been some time since Lazio beat Roma in the league. I think it's been about 4.5, 5 years. But it looks like the tide is beginning to turn in the Eternal City. The Biancocelesti have now beaten them in the Coppa Italia semi-final. I know Roma got a win in the second leg, but Lazio still went through. And now they've beaten them 3-1 in the league. Nick, we were there the last time these two played. Roma won, but they didn't really, did they? It was a bad performance, and Lazio still got the job done. Do you think that the foundations are now in place with Simone Inzaghi and Lazio for the Biancocelesti to finish ahead of Roma next season?
It's a bit of a nice romantic thought for the I guess the perceived little brother in Rome at the moment to beat Roma next season. I wouldn't go that far just yet. Roma are still second in the league. But, not to say that, I mean, you're exactly right that Simone Inzaghi has started to build that framework and that team. And I think that's the key difference between now and when they had that season with Stefano Pioli, when they did finish third. It seemed like that season, I don't know if anyone, others might disagree, but to me, it felt like that in the moment, it felt like somewhat of a one-off where now, okay, they're in fourth and they're likely not to finish higher than that, but it feels like they're actually building something. There's a structure there, there's a framework there, and you have to love what Simone Inzaghi is doing there. So if he can keep a lot of the talent there and continue to build, then I'm sure they'll give it a good crack. But at the moment, I think Roma should probably deserve to remain favourites for next season, given the talent that they have and what you'd assume would be a bigger budget in the off-season. I would, however, say if Roma do lose the likes of Kostas Manolas in defence, and if that defence is actually broken up, then I'd probably put the money on Lazio to beat them, because that's, I guess, the biggest difference for Roma this season is that their defence has been somewhat consistent, which it hasn't been for a long time. And if it's not, then, all hell breaks loose again. So,
yeah, you spoke about the future there, obviously, and one promising sign that Lazio have for the future is Keita Balde. He scored twice in the derby. He was brilliant. One of our comments that's coming live from Abdul Baheli. We always get names that I can't pronounce popping up in the comments. Apologies for that, Abdul. But he wants to know our thoughts on Keita's bold evolution from a La Masia misfit to the derby hero. Luca, I'll bring you in. What are your thoughts on Keita Balde?
Yeah, I think it's been clear for a while that he's certainly a good player, and he seems to fit in very well at Lazio. They've sort of taken to him as one of their own in a way after he came in from Barcelona, where he never really got that much of a chance. It's just that kind of direct nature that he plays, the way he just runs at teams and gets shots away early. It's very simple, straightforward football. But he's still young, and that derby looked very, very dangerous. Like Roma could have conceded more. They did look very open when he was just running directly at the back line, and he just all around seems like a very good player. Just brings something different, that kind of just fast, rapid style of play. It's perhaps not necessarily worried too much about getting back and just building from deep positions, and then linking up with Felipe Anderson as well. He can do the same thing. It's all very, very good. And yeah, he should have a bright future at Lazio. I think there was a few issues in the past about sort of contract disputes, but if they can sort of keep on to him, keep him happy, and he looked happy when he was celebrating under the curva against Roma, that they've certainly got a player there if they can just sort of hang on to him, he doesn't do so well, that the next step in his development is to move to a bigger, more wealthy club.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it open to the two of you now. A little quick question. Can either of you name the last player to score twice in a derby for Lazio? No? I'm taking that as a no. Just dead air isn't great, guys. Come on.
No one's coming to mind.
What kind of period are we talking?
I'm just going to give you the answer. It was Roberto Mancini, which shows how well Keita is doing there. Nick's clearly surprised. Nick, you're a fan of Diego Perotti's penalties, aren't you?
Yeah, sure.
Well, did you see Daniela De Rossi's attempt at recreating them?
Yeah, not a fan.
You're not a fan, no? I thought you liked those penalties.
God, they annoy me. God. And you know what annoyed me more? The way he I don't know if you saw his celebration, but
Yeah,
he went. You know, it was probably, I guess, you know, you can understand the moment in the derby, but jeez.
It's the Roman passion coming out. Like,
yeah,
what's wrong with
that's
that?
what you want. That's what you tune in for.
Yeah. Just the way he goes to penalty, just hit it. Just I hate that, and goes and kick. He kicked the bloody microphone or whatever it was on the sideline harder than he kicked the ball for the penalty.
He scored, didn't he?
Yeah, luckily.
No,
Well,
I'm not having that. He scored a penalty and you're giving out.
What?
Why are you giving out? He scored the penalty. What's the problem with the technique?
It's just not a good technique. I just don't like it. Let's be honest, he did not execute that well at all. He hit it into the ground, really, and it was just lucky the keeper a bit caught out by it. I don't think it was good technique or anything. It wasn't. It was nowhere near like how Perotti would take it. So, and maybe I'm just more frustrated at the point that it wasn't actually a penalty. So,
yeah, that was an absolutely embarrassing dive from Strootman. At one stage, I thought he was actually going to apologise for it, because when he went down, he seemed to realise, oh no, that's going to be one of those things. We have another comment in the live section. Keep them coming, guys. It's kicking off quite nicely. But who would be a good candidate to take over at Roma if Spalletti is to leave? Nick, I'll stick with you. You're quiet enough for your standards today. Anyone jump to mind?
Oh, to take over Roma. You know, we're talking about like options to take over Juventus if Allegri would go, and I can't. We struggle to think on. There isn't a lot out there that. Maybe Luca, you might know. I can't think of someone that kind of suits Roma straight away.
Well, seeing as you've got Monchi coming in behind the scenes and Unai Emery struggling a bit at PSG, you could get the old Sevilla dream team back at Roma, try and build something for the future, get kicking on in Europe.
That's not a bad shout, actually. I hadn't considered that, but that would be, I don't know if great's the right word, but it would be nice to see Monchi and Emery teaming up together in Italy. Hopefully they could make Roma actually do something in Europe, even a Europa League win, which the two seem fond of. Well, if you've nothing else to add about the derby, guys, we'll move on to the next game, I guess. Nick, you might want to take out your earphones now, because we're going to Inter 0, Napoli 1. The Partenopei are back to within a point of Roma in the chase for the second and final automatic Champions League spot. Nick, put your earphones back in, please. The race isn't over, and if we just look at the two teams' remaining fixtures, it looks like it might swing in the favour of Napoli, because Roma have to play Milan away, Juve at home, and then they've got Chievo and Genoa, so fair enough. And Napoli have Cagliari, Torino, Fiorentina and Samp. Luca, what are your thoughts? Who's favourite to take second place? Because we know what Nick thinks.
Well, I think Roma sort of tend to let down in the big games, but no, they've probably got that out of the way. Though I wouldn't be surprised to see them go win it all. But yeah, with Napoli probably play the best team around. They'll play the best football around. So yeah, I suppose it's going to be pretty competitive going through. But like with it not really mattering in a way, I think I'd back Roma if there's just no real pressure on them
Nick, are you finished complaining?
Well, I just don't know what you want me to do. Take my headphones out, put it in. What do you want from me, Conor?
You're just having a little moan in the comment section, letting the listeners in behind the scenes there. For a minute, I thought you posted that on the public live on YouTube comments bit, and I thought you were going to show them behind the curtain. Nick, you wrote scathingly about Inter last week. I think scathing is the right word about last week's piece. Did Inter prove themselves worthy of beholding Mauro Icardi's services?
Did you watch the match? Of course not. No, the most positive thing that you can say about that match is that Inter only lost by 1 goal. Yes, the goal, granted, did come from an amazing clearance from Yuto Nagatomo. Absolute howler.
What a play.
How he remains in that squad is just not the squad, in the lineup. Anyway, that's beyond the point. But, that aside, yes, Napoli's 1 goal did come from that. So you might say, well, maybe Inter were a bit unlucky, but really, I mean, they were not even in that game. Napoli had all the chances. They didn't really have any scares or any real chances, and Napoli didn't really look like they even went into second gear. It was just a walk in the park for them. It was just like they were on a training run, and the 1 goal down for 90. For the rest of the match, Inter should have been fighting. There should have been 1 goal. We could actually steal a point here, which would have been a great result. But there was no fight. There was no spirit, and it's the same old stuff. It's not really worth talking about the team that's not going to show any fight for the fans that continually show up to watch them. So, but yeah, Napoli seemed to be going well. It got a result when they weren't necessarily at their clinical best, and I'm sure they will finish second, as I've predicted.
Yeah, they might have a bit of a problem though in the summer with Dries Mertens' contract situation not looking too promising. I think his wife isn't too fond of living in Naples. I don't know why. It's a beautiful place, but there's a lot of interest in him from around Europe, as you would expect with his performances this season. One of those teams interested is actually Inter. He'd obviously go for a bit of a sizable fee. Maurizio Sarri said that they can't afford to let him go because then it's effectively going back to year 0. A year after they let go of Gonzalo Higuain and pretty much had to start from scratch again. Luca, how big of a blow would it be for Napoli if they did lose Mertens?
Yeah, it would be like very much this real big blow because he's really come on. He's really become a star player. He's been there for a few years. He's really sort of acclimatized now to the environment. I think also it's just like that kind of symbolic blow where they can't really keep on to these star players where and then it kind of reflects badly on the management where people will start criticizing, they're trying to be too cheap. They're not not giving the players what they're worth. They try and mess around too much with these kind of image rights in the contracts, and it just sort of makes the club not look like it's going to be a real big player in just terms of how it's run. And it would be a shame for that, with the way that Sarri's got them playing and just how someone like Mertens, and he's just this kind of really attacking live wire threat. And yeah, it would be the big blow. I suppose on the pitch you could kind of expect Milik to sort of take on a bigger role now that he's back fit, but I think just kind of more in terms of the kind of sort of prestige and show of kind of intent for Napoli to say that we're going to keep our best players, we're going to tie them down to these contracts, like I think they did with Insigne recently. It kind of would sort of go back on what they've achieved there, and it just sort of makes the club not look like quite as big a serious player, especially with kind of Inter perhaps in the future as well, trying to spend a bit more money now that they've got it coming in. It could kind of redress the balance at the top of Serie A.
I think me and Nick both just came to the same realization while you were speaking there, Luca. I forgot what you were saying, but I really appreciate having you back on. It's nice hearing your voice again. I'm sure the listeners will agree. We're getting a lot of questions in about Milan. Again, because we will come to Milan a bit later on. But one thing that's surprising me is how much perseverance these Milan fans have. Because after a week when they've drawn with Crotone, they still want us to speak about their club. And you're a credit to your club, guys. Keep it up. But we're going to move on to, let's be honest, this is what we've all come here for this week. We're going to Bergamo. We're going to talk about Atalanta versus Juventus. Well, we'll start off with Juve because, to be honest, I think Juve deserve enormous credit for just being so gritty and battling so well against the best team in Italy. Nick, thoughts?
Is this guy serious? Is this a joke? Unbelievable.
Right.
You're a Juve
Nick,
fan, right?
Apparently. Well, maybe not this week. I might have been last week, so we'll see what happens. But, right, so La Dea, they're still fifth, 5 points ahead of Milan, meaning when they meet Milan in 2 weeks, they will be ahead of them, regardless of what happens this week. And they are 8 points ahead of your beloved Inter. Sorry to say it. But, right, Nick, you alluded to it in the intro. Papu Gomez. Did you see the pass for Andrea Conte's goal?
Yeah, it's a pretty good cross.
It wasn't bad, was it?
It was just from nothing, just...
Right, we'll talk about Papu for a minute. I joked earlier in the season, that he would win the Ballon d'Or, but in a serious note, surely he's within a shout for winning the Player of the Year in Serie A this year, right?
Yeah, you'd think so with what he's doing at that Atalanta team and the way he's like the talisman, I suppose, Belotti or someone like that could give him a real run for his money. But yeah, from... Where was he in Ukraine, Kharkiv, and sort of Atalanta, and doing well, but not necessarily like capturing all this attention that he's done. Sorry, that's dog drinking. It's the dog drinking.
Dog's back in the kitchen.
I was wondering what that was.
Right, Luca, we'll leave you to it for a minute. Nick, you love a stat. Nick, just can you compose yourself, please, so we can continue the podcast until Luca's dog quenches his or her thirst. We're going to keep talking about Papu Gomez. Nick, you're a fan of a stat. He has 14 goals and 9 assists this year. And in his last 5 games, he's got 5 goals and 4 assists. Nothing to say, no?
Was there a question there, or
just talk? Are you protesting against me this week or something?
No, it's just that's good.
That's good.
I don't know what you want me to say.
If Mauro Icardi had done that this year,
Mauro Icardi has 24 goals and 8 assists. So
it's Serie A.
Yes.
This season, does it?
Yeah, he does.
That's really impressive. Luca, are you ready to come back to things?
Good research there.
Yeah. Dog's out the garden now. So it's safe.
Okay, perfect. At least we've got an FAF mascot, I guess. But Nick's refusing to talk about Papu Gomez, so we'll move it on to Andrea Conte. Mattia Caldara gets a lot of love, but Conte has 7 goals this season as well, and we spoke in recent weeks about his importance, him and Spinazzola on the other side, their importance to this Atalanta team. Conte is a transfer target for seemingly everybody in the world. He was linked with a move to Napoli last year, didn't go, said he wanted to stay for another year, but he could well go this year. The future of Italian defence is bright with Caldara, Romagnoli and Rugani in the middle. Do you think Andrea Conte can be the established man on the right in the years to come?
Yeah, that's no real reason why not, with that kind of energy he brings running up and down that right flank, and to score so many goals for that. Like, obviously Atalanta are quite a fluid team. They do sort of get back and forwards, but yeah, it would be like interesting to see if he can make that kind of step up to playing for Italy. And Ventura is kind of trying to sort of put a lot of faith in these kind of younger players as he looks to rebuild the team after the team sort of probably outperformed itself at Euro 2016. But there is obviously a need for change over these the next generation. And obviously Atalanta have been really producing good young Italian players for ages. Even I suppose Zappacosta, you've had fullbacks going through there, and Conti's just the next one. And yeah, there's no real reason why he can't probably kick on. I suppose perhaps maybe there's other fullbacks in kind of similar positions. You might wonder if, I don't know, Darmian could go back to Italy and kind of re-establish himself in like Italian psyche, or De Chilio or something. But Conti's still young enough, and that kind of goal scoring contribution is a real kind of asset that perhaps not so many fullbacks elsewhere have.
Nick, I'm forcing you to talk about them. Their remaining fixtures are Udinese, Milan, Empoli, and I think it's Chievo on the last day. 5th place is theirs. Fair?
Yeah, pretty much. Unbelievably, because I'm pretty sure I'm quoted on this podcast earlier in the season saying that it's near impossible for them to finish in 5th place. But they've completely proved me wrong. I did not think they could keep that kind of form consistent, particularly after the likes of Roberto Gagliardini had left, who was, a very key part of their midfield. To go into January without Frankesi as well, and it's like for it to drop, and then it just kept going and going and going, and that team must have a lot of spirit and fight amongst them, because and confidence, self-belief in their own talents, because they continue to turn up every single week. Even putting aside when they did smash 7-1, they turned up the very next week and they got back to where they were. So no, full credit to them. They've 5, in my opinion, quite easily, and Inter and AC Milan left scrapping for 6th, unfortunately.
Yeah,
for Milan fans.
The contrast in form between Inter and Atalanta since that 7-1 game, they couldn't be more opposing each other. But forget what I was going to say. I'm going to that game against Milan in 2 weeks, and oh my God, I cannot wait for that. It's going to be fun. We'll move on to Milan now. They drew with Crotone. The Rossoneri are now with just 1 win in their last 5 games. And in Crotone's last 5 games, Nick, I told you we had a stat on Crotone. Crotone have picked up the same amount of points in the last 5 games as Juventus. Are you impressed?
I'm very impressed. By the stat or by Crotone?
Both.
Also by Crotone, but
thanks.
All right, stat.
I appreciate it. That's fine. Luca, we haven't had you on a couple of weeks. We've spoken a bit about Milan, particularly. Can't remember if it was last week or the week before we had Augustilla on. But basically, the important thing for Milan this summer seems to be to keep hold of Vincenzo Montella. But in terms of on the pitch, what areas do you think they need to strengthen the most? Obviously, I would say defense. Would you agree?
Yeah, you would kind of expect, obviously they've got Romagnoli, so they've got a centre-back that they can build around there, perhaps just about giving him a partner, and then I suppose kind of in a sort of similar sense to the local rivals, perhaps the full-backs as well aren't necessarily the top quality that you would want at a team like that, who, if they're perhaps sort of got a team sitting back trying to just hold them off at the centre or something, they maybe could have a fullback who can get a bit further and just sort of deliver across, in the kind of sense that Atalanta have been through. And I think up front, I think they're okay. I don't think there's any sort of major lacking, major issues there. And it's just the defence, obviously the goalkeeper. They got these sort of young players, so they can kind of hope that if they just keep things consistent, that will also bring just natural improvement as the players develop. And I think they've got quite a lot of sort of combative central midfielders, so there's not necessarily need to bring anyone else like that in. So as you said, I think it's just kind of that defence and just sort of giving this team a kind of real stable kind of base to build around, because quite a lot of the things are the positive, and sort of the club is entering a new era now with Berlusconi leaving. So perhaps they don't need to start just trying to panic and like bring in all these kind of big name players, but they've got what they kind of should need moving forward. So just a few centre backs or something, and should be enough moving forward.
I wouldn't be so quick to announce Berlusconi leaving just yet. I have a sneaky feeling he's going to be back in one way or another soon enough. I reckon that deal just, I don't know, there's a few question marks still standing over it. One of the questions we got from a listener actually comes in on the Milan clubs. It's from Charlie Tango on Twitter, which, what a name that is. It's about the Milan clubs, and he wants to know which of the two will finish higher in Serie A this year and will either actually qualify for the Europa League. Nick, you can take it.
Honestly, between those two clubs, the most inconsistent, like, it's pick one. It's like it's a complete lottery to me. I think it might very well go down to the goal difference. It's a squad of talent of Inter against a Milan side with much less talent, but who play with a bit more fight about them. So I'd give Milan the advantage purely because of the league table at the moment. But if they were even, I would probably give Inter the advantage, purely basing it on the fact that, you know, the likes of Icardi will just drag them through. But they're both really not doing well. But I mean, mistake me if I'm wrong, but the City should get the Europa League place this season, given that Lazio and Juventus will play in the Coppa Italia final.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be just a qualification round, though.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it might be that. Yeah.
Teams records and qualifiers.
Yeah. I've no idea.
One of the comments that's just come in live is actually about where Milan need to strengthen, and it kind of gave me a little giggle. We need a good defence and creative midfielder and a good striker. So basically everything but Gigi Donnarumma needs upgrading this summer. So another big summer ahead for Milan. Do you want to talk about the bottom teams again, Nick? We chat about Crotone for a bit, but
I might, if it's all right, given that there's a few Milan fans there, I'll mention something else about them. That while I can imagine, and some of the comments are echoing that thought, the frustration with that team, and you know, the dropping points to Crotone and Empoli's, I mean, that's got to really hurt. But trying to put things into context and look in a positive view, Milan actually finished last season on 57 points under Sinisa Mihajlovic. And already now, with 4 games to spare, they're on 59 points. So a new coach has come in, and with the amount of injuries they've had, yes, they don't play a good brand of football, but they've actually improved on last season. So if you know, there is something there to build off. And I guess that's the great thing about what Montella has done, is he was never going to be able to play a dominant style of game, because he would just get absolutely poleaxed every week with that kind of midfield. But he's played a game which that kind of quality of team can actually produce results every now and then, to the point where they're actually doing better than last season. So there is something. Granted, they need a lot of reinforcements to build off of, but there's that youth there. So there is something there. There is a silver lining, and through Montella, I can only hope for Milan's, from the fans, that this is the start of their new era that they can grow off. And obviously the new Chinese investment, they would hope that they can build a much stronger team off the back of that. But yeah, I just thought I'd put that across. They've already actually beaten last year's tally by 2 points. So it's not all that bad.
That's very optimistic from you on Milan, which
I'm trying to help. I can see they're in pain, so I'm just,
I suppose you know the struggles that they're going through.
exactly. I feel their pain.
I can't really relate from 5th place, but we'll talk.
one season up there, and he's just
so let me have one season.
All right.
But Crotone, they didn't win, but they did still gain ground on Empoli, who thankfully Sassuolo beat 3-1. So they're now 4 points behind them. It's still possible for them to stay up. Luca, we haven't got your thoughts on this. It's kind of heated up a lot in the time that you've been away, but do you think that Empoli or maybe even Genoa, who are only 5 points clear of Crotone, can drop down into that bottom 3?
Yeah, you would think that Genoa are definitely at risk because they're just completely shambolic. They bring Juric back and then he starts crying in a press conference because he just can't understand why his team is so bad at the moment. Like losing at home to Chievo, they're just so kind of unhappy. They just need this season to end as soon as possible. But then I think Empoli's fans perhaps haven't necessarily helped their cause. They won 2 games on the bounce. After Crotone had been doing well, they kind of helped render that meaningless with their good results. But then they lose 3-1 at home to Sassuolo in a big game, which would have been marked down as a winnable one. And then Levan Michelezze goes over in the stadium car park afterwards and ends up getting into a scuffle with the fans where someone tries to punch him in the face, and I think connects. Then the rest of the fans start to try and protect him. So with Empoli having done quite well, that's a bad result, and then kind of just a negative aftertaste with that kind of off the pitch stuff. So yeah, it seems Crotone have all the kind of positive momentum at the minute with Empoli having done that, and then Genoa have just been so consistently poor since the turn of the year that they're still at risk as they just look so poor that it wouldn't be inconceivable for them to lose every game before the end of the season.
Yeah, another team down the bottom who won this weekend. Palermo, they beat Fiorentina, of course, they did 2-0. 2-0, Palermo. Fiorentina, seriously. Fiorentina are kind of just the gift that keep on giving, aren't they? We try to give them a bit of credit and then they go and lose to Palermo. So is there anything to say about this other than it's a little bit funny? I noticed Palermo have only won 4 games this season. And then I looked at teams that have beaten Fiorentina, and there's Empoli, Palermo, and Genoa, which 3 of the bottom 5 have beaten Fiorentina this year. Nick, do you have anything to add about this at the risk of occurring the wrath of our Fiorentina fans?
I mean, it's not really subjective. You just look objectively at this game. It's 75% possession Fiorentina had against a defense that has conceded 31 goals in their last 10 previous matches. They're averaging more than 3 goals per game lately. And Fiorentina, with 75% possession, 13 shots in, only 3 of them were on target. And of their 13 shots, 10 of them were from outside the penalty box. If they cannot get into the 18-yard box against this team, there's no words. It's absolutely atrocious. It's not good enough. And the Viola fans should be rightly angry. And I think it's really at this stage just reinforcing that South's time is coming to an end, and they really need someone to refresh that team, because there is potential there, as we've discussed in previous weeks, but I just the man to do it anymore.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that in quickly because we were nice to them last week. I do just want to add that I don't actually hate Fiorentina. I kind of find them a bit amusing from a neutral point of view when they're kind of predictably disappointing against teams like this. They deceive you into thinking that they're all right, and then they go and lose to Genoa or Palermo, something like that. Before we move on to get Luca's Serie B roundup, we do have one more question from Super Pippo. Could be Pippo Inzaghi, who knows. With Serie A coming to an end, how would you rate Joe Hart's first season in Italy. Luca, you can give us this.
Do you want a number or?
Yeah, I suppose we'll give him a rating out of 10. I'll start with a 5.
Oof. Yeah, I was going to go for a 5, so I'll upgrade it to a 5.5. Seeing you've taken it.
Nick, do you have a rating out of 10 to give Joe Hart's first season?
I don't know, if you take it in the context of coming to a new league and, you know, not speaking the language and all of that, playing with a completely new defense, I would give him maybe a 6 or 6.5. Purely based that I think his shot stopping has been quite good. It's just his reading of the play and the defense in terms of when to come out and when not to, which I guess aligns strongly with that communication and that communication with his defense. Yeah, I think that's the part where he's kind of come down, and you can kind of understand why that is. So I'm not going to be too harsh on him. He has made quite a few mistakes, but I think he's been satisfactory, let's say.
Yeah, I think he does deserve credit for the way he has immersed himself in the Italian culture, really. He's always trying to speak Italian whenever he's spoken to. You know, you see a lot of players that will shy away from it, but he seems to actually really make an effort and care about learning the language, which is nice to see. He hangs out with like Andrea Bellotti and stuff you see on Instagram, which is quite nice that he's not just going back to his little hotel room probably and speaking to his mates back at City. Luca, if you're ready, we'll go to you for some Serie B action. What's happening down there?
Well, there's a full round of fixtures today, with it being May Day and a national holiday in Italy. And obviously, the big one of them was Hellas Verona versus Vicenza, the Veneto derby. And Vicenza had won the return leg, and Verona were at home today and sort of still trying to keep up in that automatic promotion hunt. And they'd had 2,000 fans at training. It was all being built up as a big match, and took the lead in the first half before Vicenza came back to go 2-1 up. And then 88 minutes gone, Vicenza still 2-1 up, but then Verona net 2 at the end, win 3-2. I think it was scenes at the final whistle. There was a bit of a tussle. 2 players got sent off. I think one of them was probably a substitute. And it was good goals as well. The Vicenza goal was very good, and Romolo, who was sort of very highly touted player in Serie A, went to Juventus, but then struggled with some injuries and is stuck with Verona since they've gone down. He netted the winner, and it was sort of very good curling effort. So keeps it sort of going at the top. But even at the top, Spal, they drew away at Spezia on the Saturday, and then games on the Sunday. And Frosinone won quite comfortably 3-1 at Salernitana. So there is the possibility that there's just no playoffs at all, because if Frosinone managed to finish 10 points above Perugia, the way the league works is that there's just no playoffs. They think those top 3 teams are so good that they'll just go automatically up. And it's probably now really up to Perugia to try and keep up the heat on Frosinone to stop them getting that 10-point difference between them. And then obviously, in terms of excitement, you will probably want the playoffs. I think some of the TV companies are kind of a bit concerned about the prospect of them not having anything in that regard, but we'll just have to wait and see how it finishes out on the pitch.
Yeah, I forgot that the Serie B playoff system was absolutely mental. Remember, the first time I came across it, I was playing Football Manager. I think I was with Atalanta, having gotten them relegated. And I was like 18th with 3 weeks left, and I think I finished 9th and somehow ended up in the playoffs because they expanded by 2 teams after the season finished because the points gap wasn't big enough or something. But it looks like Spal finally are actually confirmed almost as promoted, which is amazing. Are they confirmed as promoted? It will be, I suppose, if it's 3 teams.
Well, they have 6 points above Frosinone in third, so, and they don't seem to be letting up. They don't seem to be getting nervous, and obviously they didn't win it, but a goalless draw at Spezia, it's not a bad result. It's good enough, and you would really, at this point with where they are, expect them to be up here.
They're going to be
Luca, just a quick question about Bari. Do you kind of know what's happened there? Because I think we spoke about them earlier in the season, and they look like they were coming back and they were back up into the playoff positions. And then they've gone on a run of, I think it's 1 win in 9 matches. Has something triggered this that you know of, or is it just form's just gone down the toilet? Because they've looked like they've just completely lost the plot there.
Yeah, I think it's just, I don't think there's like been any kind of massive traumatic event there. I think they're just sort of really struggling to offer that much in attack, and I think it's just a form thing. I think kind of with all these kind of different permutations of what the playoffs mean, and they were just sort of trying to hang in at the bottom there, because I think they could still theoretically do it from 9th if they win and Spezia drop points, they go level with them in 8th, which could be the final spot. But I suppose it's kind of it will kind of have a kind of like mental effect on them to sort of have to be concerned about what's happening in 3rd as well. Just kind of the distance involved with the different like teams in the playoffs, how wide a kind of selection of teams can go in. But I suppose also with Bari, it's just kind of like, perhaps with them being arguably one of the biggest clubs in that division, it is often more difficult for them with the amount of pressure on. Even Verona, who are near the top and should go up and would have been expected to go, they've been struggling to win at home. I think these kind of big clubs in Serie B can kind of struggle with the extra pressure, whereas perhaps some of the smaller ones where there's less sort of pressure from the fans and expectation, they can overperform, as we've seen in recent years where quite a lot of small clubs have done really well and made it up into Serie A.
All right, Luca, thanks as ever for keeping an eye on things down in Serie B. Nick, shut up, turn your mic off. We're finished. As ever, if you liked the podcast, the videos, whatever, head over to patreon.com/Forza Italian Football. Give us $1 of your money every month and we will love you forever. Thanks to everybody who was interacting as we went in the live comments on YouTube. If you just listen to us on iTunes or Acast, try us out on YouTube. You can interact and get your questions read out live as we record. You can get us on Twitter at Serie A FFC, Facebook and Instagram at Forza Italian Football. Head to ForzaItalianFootball.com and read the stuff. Luca is on Twitter at GumbyZono. Nick is at Nick Z Carroll. I'm at Concalcio. Atalanta hopefully won't slip up next week, but if they do, you won't be hearing from me. And I think that's pretty much all we have to say. Nick looks like he wants to add something.
Nope.
No, for once he doesn't want to speak. So all that's left to say is ciao for now.